Hi, welcome to Formation Podcast. My name is Rebekah Billings, and I'm here with my dear friend, Cindi Hogan, and we're going to have a good time today talking to you. Well, welcome. We're here talking today about being a mom and a grandma in 2023. You know, I think it's so important to have conversations around what it means to be a mom, a grandma. In this day and age, you know, the further we go, it's like the breakdown of the family further deteriorates. And, you know, even in some circles, you can't even talk about being a mom or because it's too closed-minded for some people. But, you know, my amazing friend Cindi here, she's been a mom and now a grandma for a little minute. And, you know, what I appreciate about my friend Cindi and their families, they're just real. They have conversations, they give you advice, and it's just real life stuff. And so I wanted to get my friend on here and have a conversation that we can share with the world about our experiences and, you know, the struggles we've had and in life and this day and age, because parenting now is different than even 10, 20, 30 years ago, and the challenges we face now are so unique to this generation, and we can learn a lot from people who have gone before us, and even from each other who are in it right now, experiencing life together right now. So I wanted to get my friend on here and have a little talk and just share our hearts about what we're learning, what the Lord is showing us, and the value of being a mother. And so Cindi, I'm going to open up the box here with you. And do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
So I have 2 children. My son is 26, married, and has 2 children. And then I have a daughter who's almost 22. She's engaged. And so we raised our children on the mission field in Mexico. And a lot of people felt sorry for my kids. They have lived, and continue to live a great, very adventurous life. And we're very blessed to have our 2 grandkids. Grandmotherhood is a whole different level. It's the best. It's really awesome. And so we homeschooled our children, which was a huge challenge for me. Not something I was expecting to do. I went to public school. My husband was raised on the mission field, so he did homeschooling. And when I married him, I just didn't give that a second thought as to my kids are going to have a teacher, right? You know, and so that was probably my first really big challenge. Was homeschooling. Didn't feel qualified, and my husband encouraged me, my mother-in-law, that you can do it. And God gave us. I had 2 children, and God gave them to my husband, and I lent them to us, and asked us to raise them in Him, raise them and teach them. It was our job. It's no one else's job. And whoever we deem appropriate, we can let speak into their lives. But it was our job to raise them, and so we took it seriously. And you know, the homeschooling was, like I said, a challenge. And each one of our kids are very different, and so they needed different things. But our main focus with school and just in life is raising them in the gospel, raising them to put their faith in Jesus, to live in the Spirit, to believe in God and believe in everything that He has for their lives. We are truly, truly beyond blessed that both of them have committed to the ministry and Mexico, and my daughter's marrying a missionary, and that they want to continue, because there's so many kids that were brought up in ministry that they don't want to have anything to do with it. Our children had all those same opportunities. But my husband, I asked him, what made you stay? What did your parents instill in you that despite all of the heartaches that you experienced, the injustices, the hypocrisy that you saw throughout your childhood, you know, and that we still see today, what was it? And he's like, my dad was always just, it's about Jesus and forgiveness. That has been in our home everything, my husband, whenever there's conflict, his first question, he goes, sits down, you get your people that are in conflict, and he says, before we even start talking, before we say a word, before you tell me your side, all of that, and we did this with our kids, he goes, are you willing to forgive? Whatever happened, whatever happened to you, are you willing to forgive? Because if you're not willing to forgive, there's no point in even talking about this.
100%.
And so that was just a wonderful thing. And I really believe that just us having conversations. Right. My husband's always about let's have the conversation. Yes. And sometimes you're just like, I don't want to have the conversation because the conversation means we have to face hard facts.
Yes. And vulnerability.
Means, yes, it means we have to forgive. And and then grandmotherhood.
Yes.
This is a whole different I'm still new at it. My grandson is 4. My granddaughter is 1. And wow, I thought being a grandma would be easier. And in a lot of ways it is, because when they start crying,
you hand them back.
Yes. Woo. All the, poopy diapers, you just be like, oh, you need your mom. Here you go. But I want to be a very hands-on grandma, but they're my son and daughter-in-law's children to raise. And I can be grandma, I can give suggestions, and then I have to step away. And I have to say, no, God gave Fletcher and Nova to you, to y'all, to raise. And so it's just, but being a grandma is beautiful. But my heart, when my grandkids were born, when Fletcher was born, when he would cry, it broke my heart.
Oh my gosh, the cry.
And I couldn't. I told my husband, I can't handle him crying, and I had no idea it was going to be that hard. So that's who I am, what I do.
Yeah, I love it. Well,
yes.
Well, for me, those of you who don't know, I'm married to Andrew, and I have 3. I call them Sons of Thunder, because I had 1 boy, and then I had twins in the span of 2 years. So I had 3 children in 2 years, and that there was a lot of crying in that. It was like, it is as hard as you would expect that to be. And they are 9 and 7 now. And of course, you wouldn't have it any other way. It was a challenge. And so I'm the mom who has the young kids still. I am the new parent. I am finding my way. And I also homeschool. And that was a choice that we made. We live here in California. And Jesus help this state. But just to be honest, there's no way we were going to put our kids into the school system here. And even if the school system was amazing and I agreed with everything, the Lord spoke very clearly to us that we needed to homeschool. And I had a very brief experience with homeschooling when I was younger, and it was fine. But my mom basically just like gave us a book and left us. And like, I know I could read and stuff, but it was like, oh my gosh, and Andrew came to me and he's like, we are going to homeschool. I'm like, by we, you mean me, so I. Yes. But, I said yes. And of course, at the beginning, if anyone's considering homeschooling, I highly, highly recommend it, because I actually believe it's the God way.
Absolutely.
Like you mentioned, God gave you those kids to raise. And I think that's a point to raise here, is that what I've seen a lot in my generation, people my age, is that they are, they kind of have children and then they let other people raise their children. Yes. It's kind of like an accessory. Like, okay, I'm going to have kids because that's what you do. And then and that second I can, they're going to go daycare, preschool, kindergarten, school, and they're not going to get in the way of my career, because that's a big thing with women right now. It's like, oh, don't kids aren't going to hinder my career. And I'm like, God made you a woman for a reason. It's a gift from God to be a woman, to be a womb carrier, to carry children. But now that's like, it's an accessory and an inconvenience for people. And so they have other people raise their kids, when God chose you to be the parent of your child. There's a huge responsibility. And when you throw ministry into that too, and it's like, I've seen a lot of people too, they have kids and like, say you're not the career woman, but you're the ministry family. And so kids come along and the accessory mentality remains, because it's like, you're an accessory to my ministry, and let's smile for this photo and look like a happy family. But really, the parents are married to the ministry and the children are just kind of like, you stay in the background and be quiet while I minister to the Lord. And the Lord's looking at you saying, I gave you those kids to minister to them, to parent them. And you've heard people say like, well, my first ministry is this, that. I believe obviously your ministry, everything you do is a ministry unto the Lord. But first of all, to your spouse, and then to the children he gave you, because he's not looking to anyone else to raise those kids. No. That's a modern idea. Like, throw your kids to the system and they'll comply. And God's looking at you like, where's the righteous, holy standard? Where's the legacy?
Absolutely.
Where's the God rearing? And so I love homeschooling, and I'm an advocate for homeschooling, and I'm not one of those people that was like, I have these 5 degrees and I'm ready. I'm going to be the beacon of knowledge for my children. I'm like, I have homeschooling. I'm like, I feel like I'm in kindergarten again. Like, I'm like low-key, like checking that I know the answer. Like there's so many resources today, though. Thank God that, if God's asking you to homeschool, or if you're looking around at the schools in your area and you're like, I don't know what to do, I would pray and encourage you to ask the Lord, do I need to homeschool my kids? Because if I can do it, you can do it. And if you feel like you need to be kindergarten with it, so be it. You'll learn together. You'll get your degree together. Yes. But I think it comes back to that point that I want to make, is that we need to take up the responsibility as the mothers and the parents to say, it's on me to help raise these kids, because they're going to look at my life, whether I teach them or not. They're going to look at my life and say, this is how I should or shouldn't do my life. And what an amazing opportunity to have a part in raising someone and helping shape their view of God and helping lead. What an honor, and some days, and I'm talking a lot, some days as a mom, because I'm married to an amazing, awesome man of God. He's over there. And, he's so amazing. And some days you're like, oh, what am I doing? You're like, and he's preaching and he uses words. I have to literally use a dictionary. Look, I'm like, I love you, honey. But sometimes he says his word, I'm like, low-key down here Googling.
What does it mean?
And I come home, it's like, oh, what did I achieve for the kingdom today? And I was like, okay, I worked it out, actually. I worked this out when I had the kids, because I had them so close together. They were all in diapers at the same time. And the first year, I personally changed 4,000 diapers. Like, this was not the people who helped me. I dwindled the number down. And I was like, oh, what did I do for the kingdom? I'm like, I changed 20 diapers today, and I laid on the ground and cried and asked God why my kids aren't sleeping. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing for eternity. I'm like a mess and I'm sleep deprived. And it's like, one time the Lord came to me and he actually gave me a vision of himself at my sink in my kitchen. And he had this like frilly apron on, almost like it was my apron. I don't wear aprons, but maybe that's what I would wear if I had wore aprons. He had this apron on and he was doing the dishes, looking at me, smiling. And it was like, I got you. Yeah. And you might think that you're just changing diapers. He literally said this to me, and it sounds crazy, but he was like, you're changing my diaper. It's like you give a cup of cold water to the least of these. You change a diaper for the least of these. Like, you think you're doing nothing for God, but you're unto Jesus changing those diapers. You're unto Jesus teaching those kids that homeschool. And there is so much eternal value in motherhood. And I think this modern feminism thing right now is like, oh, it's such a weak thing to be a mother. And what, like people ask me, what's your career? And I'm like, see those 3 sons of thunder and that man, that husband of mine, like, my career is ministering unto God and serving them, and that's the greatest honor of my life.
Absolutely.
And I'm laying up treasure in heaven by every diaper I do. I change unto the Lord, and I'm not. And I struggled with that at the beginning, but after seeing Jesus at the sink looking at me, being like, "I got you. There's so much eternal value in what you're doing." I then turned my motherhood into everything was an eternal value. Everything was for Him, and I made myself just. I'm giving Jesus this, soupy fruit, like, I don't know, like I'm giving Jesus this bottle and this thing. And it made my life feel so important and so valuable to the kingdom, because I may not be able to be like my husband all the time and go and preach to the nations. Like maybe one day I'll get to be with him. But right now I'm with these 3 boys, and I now see it as an honor, whereas before it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not preaching to anyone but this diaper.
But the 3 boys that you're raising,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, is that we're society is where it is because parents aren't raising their children with the values that they want. And so when you raise your kids and then you're like, here, I'm going to send them to Sunday school and I'm going to send them to school. And then when they come home for that 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours in the evening, they're going to do soccer. Their coach is going to be tending to them.
All the things.
Just all the little activities. Then you get the tired child in the evening or the child that's not really awake in the morning and you're not really spending time with them. And then you wonder, how did this happen? How did my kids get this way?
Yeah.
And but speaking about the motherhood and it being your ministry, that is something that's very deep with me. My husband, we have seen over the years all sorts of miracles. Just all sorts of miracles. And he would go out, and a lot of times I do get to go with him. We bring our whole family. One thing that we do as a family, we do ministry as a family. Yeah. The kids don't go in a nursery. And I'm okay with people that have nurseries, have Sunday school. I'm not saying that, but Sunday school doesn't need to be the only place that your children learn about Jesus. They need to be learning from you, from Dad. So it's like do you want to shape your children? And a lot of people, it's like, I want to have children. I want to be proud of them. But then they can't be proud because they're like, where did this come from? Why is my child doing this? Where did it come from? And so, like I said, I was in public school, but my mom and dad, even in public school, they were very involved in my school. They were in there looking at curriculums, looking at things. I remember in 9th grade, we're going to study mythology, and my mom's like, no, you're not. And while I kind of wanted to be embarrassed about it, like, can't I just learn? I know it's all whatever. But my mom was very involved, and I'm glad now, that she was, and it taught me that. But back to when my husband would go out and I would stay at home and I'm changing diapers and I'm washing clothes and I'm dealing with trash. We had to burn our trash. So, it wasn't like just take out the trash. You have to burn it and everything. Cooking the meals and all of that. When he would come home and tell me about a miracle, I had a decision to make. Am I going to resent him because he gets to go out and do this? Or am I going to say, thank you, Jesus, that I was able to stay home and do all of this and wash his clothes and tend to the children while he went out? I'm a part of that miracle.
Yes,
I'm a part of it. And you have to keep that in the forefront as to why are you doing this? Not what am I missing out on? And to say I did that perfectly, well, I mean, Jody's here. He can testify to that. I didn't always have the best attitudes about it. I want to help people. You want to help people. But then now I'm seeing the fruits of us deciding that we're raising our kids. We're gonna teach our children. We're gonna choose the curriculum that they use. We are going to be their counselors. We are going to, do it all. And we have a great team around us that also, it takes the village to raise the kids. So we have, we let lots of people speak into our kids' lives, but the responsibility was on us. And now I'm looking at the fruit of it, and my kids want to stay. My kids like us, good. Which is just like, I feel, sometimes I'm like, why do you, but that's the culture that we taught them, and now my grandson just started K4 and they're homeschooling and, they talk to us about it. And I'm like, you do what you feel, led to do, whatever curriculum, all that kind of stuff. And so it's just beautiful now, I'm hearing you and I know what the fruits of this are going to be. And now my kids are going out and preaching the gospel and doing all this. So all those years that I spent in the house, changing diapers, cooking food, cleaning, washing clothes, all of that is all worth it. Yeah. It was my ministry. Yes. And then now I'm having to, it's just me and Jody in the house. Now what? Now what do we do? Well, now I get to go with him. Yeah. And it's so fun. Yes. But it's also because I kept my husband my first. Yes. Well, I kept Christ my first,
Yep.
and then my husband, and then my children. And we always, that's another thing. We made sure, Jody and I, that our relationship came first. Not that we neglected the children. You cannot neglect your children.
Right.
But the kids leave one day.
Yes. Yep.
Then what?
Yeah.
You don't know each other, you know? And so we're having fun. We get to, you know, travel. It's like, I don't know, it's like we're dating again, kind of. And it's really, I mean,
I love it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
We don't have all the help unloading the truck and all that kind of stuff like we used to, but we bring less.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that.
But yeah, the ministry part, you definitely, and another thing that having the kids in your ministry, letting them be a part. When you're praying for people, the demonic deliverances also, our kids were right there. The dead people, our kids were right there praying, and people
Love it.
People talk to us and they're like, you let your kids, you know, be around this. And it's like, do we believe in God 100%. Or do we not? Do we believe that the gospel works? Because if the gospel works, my kids are good.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
But then now my kids are just like, yeah, that's what we do. Like, oh yeah. You see a dead person, you pray for them. Woo. See if they're going to get raised from the dead. You see a sick person, you pray for them. You see someone down and out, you help them. And you're the example. Your kids are looking at you. Yes. And you will find all your flaws also. Yeah. Our kids, there are things, our kids are not perfect. We see things then when we're like, oh yeah, we could have done better there. And we apologize to our kids. Something funny that me and Jody do. But we're like, sorry about that. But we can help you now. We see it and we can help you now.
Yeah. I love that.
We'll continue to help you and now help raise the grandkids.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's something I love about what I've seen in you and Brother Jody. It's just the realness. Like, you parent, like, this is what it is. There's no kind of weird, funky, I'm the parent, you're the child, even though you are the parent and they're the child. But there's like this, let's have a real life conversation. Let's do real life. And I'm going to tell you what life is like. And I'm not going to, I think sometimes in parenting, you feel like you have to have this extra layer of like stoicness or something to be like, I'm the parent and you know nothing about life. And it's like, no, come into life and I'm going to teach you about life. And I think as parents, we have to make sure we maintain that realness with our children. Together. And, my kids are in the stage where they're asking why about everything. I'm like, straight up, some things I'm like, I actually don't know. And like, if I was trying to be that performing parent, I'd try and give them some sort of really great answer. And I'm like, but I've seen enough people like y'all. And I'm like, I'm just going to be real. And I don't know the answer. Let's ask Daddy, or let me just look that up, or I'm looking up all the things. But I think that's such an amazing quality that y'all have done with your family. It's just like that realness, that face-to-face conversation, that nothing is hidden. Nothing is a no topic zone. Like y'all just, I've noticed as I've watched you guys and listened to you, like anything you want to talk about, because if a child is interested in something, they're going to find the answer. They will find the answers. And I would rather them find that from me than some random on TikTok or whatever they're, and entrust the answer to that important question to some random that I don't even know what's on them, And so I think to encourage all the moms out there is that it's okay to be real. You don't have to be perfect. No. For your, because I think some moms are insecure and like, oh, I'm not going to do a good job. That's why I fob them off to everyone else because, I couldn't. And I'm like, no, God trusted you. You might not be a perfect human being, but something in you God sees he can use to help that child grow. And if you do need the village, ask the village, but I think that's a really great point to make, is that realness and that ability to have conversation with your children is so important, because then they feel comfortable to come to you with anything, and it leaves less room for the enemy to just come in, because everything's in the light. You want to talk? Let's talk. You want to ask about that weird thing? All right. If I don't know the answer, I'll find it, but I'll let you know, and I'll say sorry when I need to, because I think that's a big thing for parents too, is that you need to be able to say sorry. And I think that, again, that's a part of realness and humility, is like, hey, sorry about that. And even now, sorry, I've learned that from other parents that have gone before me, before I had kids. I'm like, I want to be humble before them. And if I need to say sorry, they see me living my life and character out right too, that I make, even as an adult, I will still make mistakes. Even if I'm sinning against them, it's like, doesn't matter who it is, I'm going to humble myself. I'm sorry, mommy didn't know, and so, that realness, it's such an amazing attribute and important thing that kids need, because, I've seen too, like most kids, what they watch on YouTube and stuff. It's like, it's just real life. All they want to see is real. Show me someone, like, even at the lowest, like, I want to watch a little kid playing with a toy. What is it? It's real life. It's not a cartoon. It's they're attracted to the real. And when you don't have a parent that's not real, they can't connect somehow. And so I think that's a really amazing thing for us as mothers to just hang on to. It's like, never stop being real. You don't have to perform for your kids. You should be a righteous influence.
Example. Yes.
But at the same time, it's doing that welcoming into real life is so important. And I just want to touch on another point you made about making your marriage first before the kids, because I think too you can swing so far the other way where you're like, oh, my kid is an accessory, I'm gonna pour everything into my kids there, but then you neglect your marriage. It's like, that's the very foundation of your children's identity, the safety they feel in their life. And when the parents are unstable, it causes the children to be unstable. And when you so much want to be ministering to your child that you neglect your spouse, you're actually doing your child a disservice.
Absolutely.
And I think as mothers, we need, especially as mothers who are home all the time with their kids, and if you want to take up the whole my kids are my ministry, yay, that's great, but not at the expense of see you later husband. And we see this generation and ones that have gone before, it's like the main arrows of the enemy have attacked the foundation of marriage. And now it's just dismantling it completely. And I mean, it's crazy now, but I think as mothers and women of God, we need to make sure that if we're going to really raise our kids well, we need to invest in our marriage.
Absolutely.
And we need to have those real conversations with our spouses where the kids aren't there, because it's almost like, one day when we stand before God, we're going to be alone. Well, like you said, one day your kids are going to leave and y'all are going to be alone. It's and you see these people who get divorces after their kids leave because they were hanging on for the kid and they have nothing left because they didn't invest. And the foundation of the family, God didn't make kids and then parents. He made the parents, marriage, then children came. And I think, as mothers, we need to make sure that we're not throwing everything into our children and neglecting our spouses and thinking that's great and fine. And it's like, you're really undoing some good that you're trying to put in your kid when you take away that healthy foundation of marriage and a mom and a dad standing in the correct role that they're supposed to. So I don't know if you're speaking to that.
Parents have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Definitely. One thing that a piece of advice that my daddy-in-law, Brother David, gave us is you two have to be on the same page about everything. Like every decision you make, are you going to homeschool? Y'all need to get on the same page or really close. And your kids, if you're not on the same page, your kids so know it, and they will play you. They will play you like nothing else. And so we would have, in talking about homeschool again, I'm the teacher, but Dad's the principal.
Yeah, so good. I love
and
that.
We had to go to the principal's office sometimes, and but me and Jody, we tell our kids all the time, we're first-time parents, okay? So forgive us. We're having a learning curve here, especially with Corbin, our oldest. We were like, this is our first time. Yeah. We don't really know what we're doing. Yeah. We're listening to those who've gone before us, and then we're reading the Bible, and we're trying to figure out how to do this. And we would have meetings. Me and Jody, I was like, we need to talk about Corbin. I see him. I'm with him all day. I see him struggling with this. You're a guy. What does he need? Because me as a mom, I'm more nurturing, and I'm like, I want to bubble wrap everything for him because I don't like to see my children hurting. But then Dad's like, no, they need to go through this. And it's hard sometimes. Me and Jody, a lot of times he'd be like this, and I'd be like, what? Like, no. Yeah. And he's like, I need you to let me take this one. And then that's where I would just have to trust, okay, he knows he's the head of the house, and we're going to come into agreement. And that is a main thing, keeping your marriage and keeping you and your husband in agreement is just going to trickle down to you and your kids being in agreement, and just keep going down. And it's so important, and to keep Jesus the center of everything. School. Jesus is, like I told my kids, all of this knowledge you're learning on this page, that Bible verse at the bottom, that's the thing I want you to get. Right. And that's why we used the curriculum that we did, because we wanted scripture in it.
Yeah.
We want your what's it called? Diagramming sentences. And it's a missionary story about, nice. And I loved that about it, because it's just everything is centered around God, and that's our goal.
Yes.
Is a God-centered home, so that now our son has a God-centered home. Our daughter, will have a God-centered home, and that's the ultimate goal in our lives. Is that Jesus is the center of it all.
That's right.
And love it.
And I love that. And I think that's something that as parents too, we need to keep on top of. It's like not just throwing your kids on a Sunday, because that's where we live. That's the norm. You just throw your kids into the Sunday school and that's all the God they get. And I feel like we need to be priests of our home, let our husband be the priest of our home. And I think we should be having daily time in the Word together, where they're getting that teaching and the ability to ask questions and to see someone living it out, their parent trying their best to live it out. And I with our church here, what we've been doing is we changed how we did our services, and instead of having a children's church, we just invited the kids in. And for those of you who don't know, we changed from like a Sunday afternoon to a Wednesday night. And if anyone has kids, like that's the worst. And I was like, Lord, please, like, my kids are going to be tired. They're not going to be able to concentrate. And they're used to getting their, little lesson. And we were like, we felt with this change to this Wednesday night, it's like, no, that's not. They're coming in to, it doesn't matter if it's 10 o'clock. They're going to be in the atmosphere with God and next to us. And we found that even just my oldest, he's like picking up things I hear Daddy preaching about that he wouldn't have heard if he had just a little coloring lesson. And I'm not saying those are bad. Yay for the coloring, yay for the Bible verse. But that can't be all. And really, I believe that God is requiring the parents to be the ones who are the primary teachers of the Word to their children to the best of their ability.
Absolutely.
And if you are a parent and you feel like, well, we're both married to ministers and that's easy for you to say, but I don't know. Well, get a devotional and everyone do someone you can hear or trust or whatever, and do that devotional together, and you can learn together with your children.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where we need to get back to as families, is that your home is the church.
Yep.
And the kid, that separation, that someone else raised my kid in the Lord. Like, no, let's bring it back to biblical. Like, they were together. Yeah. And you might say, well, I don't have a lot of people. I don't have a village. And and you know what? To be honest, here where we are, I don't have a village either. I've never had a village. I haven't had my mom or my mother-in-law or no one. Yeah. But we've just said, well, we have each other and we have the Lord, and we're going to do this. And sometimes you fall off the wagon and you don't do your Bible studies with your kids or whatever, but we are committed to a lifestyle of being the priests to our children and allowing the Lord to use us, that even if we fall off, we get back on. Get back on, and we want our kids to be immersed in the atmosphere of God with us. Yes. I watched my parents growing up just chase after God, and they weren't perfect, but it was something about them still chasing God that made me want to still chase God. And even in the last several years, my dad is like, oh my gosh, he said, they didn't normally pray for people in public. It wasn't like, but they thought it was great, but they never did it. And a few years ago, my dad was like, oh my gosh, I prayed for the delivery truck guy. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, Dad. It was like something about seeing my dad go for it. And I might pray for people all the time. It might be something I've already conquered in my life, whatever, but like just seeing my dad do it did something. I was like, my parents, my dad just turned 80 a couple days ago, and they're on fire and they're going for it. And even as a grown adult with my own kids, seeing my parents be on fire, it just like spurs me on. Yes. And so, I know we're running out of time here, but I just wanted to kind of round that thought off of that. We as mothers, our main goal is to be there with our husbands and have Jesus as the center of our families. And from that place, we homeschool. From that place, we're real. From that place, all the other things, But if we can get Jesus in our family as the center of all we do, however that manifests, as we can focus that in with our kids, we'll see the fruits of righteousness as
generations to come.
Yes, as they grow. And it's just like you're seeing right now with your grandchildren. You did a good job with your kids, and now look at the results of all those things. You're seeing it in your grandchildren, and it works. Like Miss Cindi is a proof that this works. And so we just want to be on here and encourage y'all as parents, mothers,
Yes.
God is with you, and he's not falling off of his throne, that you're a parent, and you might even be a teenage parent. It's okay. God still chose you. You might say, I made a mistake. I'm a child myself. It's like, well, God in his infinite grace will use your life to be able to help that little child's life to grow up and to be an awesome man or woman of God one day. And never stop pursuing him.
Absolutely.
And include him in your parenthood. Just don't parent without him. Lord, help me parent. You're my Father, and Holy Spirit, come and help me do this.
Yes.
Because he chose you for such a time as this. Because sometimes, I'm going to say this too, parenting in this generation, you're like, oh my gosh, like, how did you think I could be a parent in this generation? Like,
that's every generation.
Like, I'm like,
each generation has their challenges.
I'm like, how did you think I could do this? Like, and you know, everyone's you hear people despising this generation, that, and I'm like, well, heaven's hope is this generation.
Absolutely.
So somehow he thought we could do this, and he thought we could be the ones to be chosen to stand under his blood and his covenant, his grace, to raise these kids in righteousness. And there are days where you feel like you can't do it, but you just got to stand on the truth. Doesn't matter what I feel. You chose me.
Yep.
And I say yes.
Yep.
And with everything I am, I'm going to lead these kids into glory as I'm running into glory. Is there anything else you wanted to add or say before we?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on our podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you, everyone, for joining. We love you. Stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of good content and conversation coming your way. Take care.